Right. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the second track of our virtual conference, which is the Digital Trends Watch. To kick things off in this track, we have Ravi Patel, Managing Director, Partnerships and Business Development at Episode 6 on a presentation on the future of payments for digital banks. Over to you, Ravi.
Great. Thank you, Jed, for the introduction. I'm just getting everything set up here. I believe it's all working. Cool. Thank you very much, everybody. And thanks for your time today. My name is Ravi Patel, and I'm the Managing Director of Partnerships and Business Development for Episode 6. We are a modern payment technology processor. And today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what we think is the future of payments for banks and digital banks. We've obviously seen an explosion in the number of new banks being set up, and we understand that many banks in the region are undergoing significant transformation opportunities. So we think that there's something exciting to really talk about today. Against the advice of my marketing team, I've decided to sort of jump straight into some case studies to really showcase some of the innovations we see in the markets that we've supported. Just to give you a flavor of what's going on out there. I'll start off with HSBC. In 2017, they observed that there was a threat from the mainland China wallets, Alipay and WeChat Pay, coming into the market and significantly stealing share from the incumbent players. So HSBC launched a wallet called PayMe, which after about a couple of years migrated from the previous processor onto to Episode 6, our technology. What's interesting here is that the strategy was considered to be reasonably successful, and now 70% of all the peer-to-peer transactions in Hong Kong are now powered by HSBC PayMe. This is a platform that was built that has now scaled to about 3 million users across consumers and merchants that can basically make payments amongst themselves or to merchants. And with the scalable infrastructure that's now been able to increase new features such as loyalty, government disbursements during COVID, and now there are many more plans to expand the PayMe platform based on it having now a modern, scalable infrastructure. Japan Airlines is a very exciting story. The airline, it's one of the top 5 airlines in the world, decided to launch a neobank with a partner, SBI Bank, which is the large digital bank in Japan. And this the partnership essentially launched a multi-currency MasterCard product that allows a customer to maintain 14 different currency wallets to get the best foreign exchange rates as they travel around the world. Since then, the client has also integrated into the platform the Japan Airlines Air Miles loyalty scheme, which means that their customers can spend their Air Miles in real time anywhere in the world. And that's quite a powerful proposition, demonstrating how payments can link to loyalty and in real time with an efficient infrastructure of a brand new value propositions that can compete in the market. This platform currently has about 500,000 users on the that has currently been signed up, and Japan Airlines has about 20 million loyalty members, which is basically the target base. So when selecting or when designing their back end, they really have to think about how you can scale a business very rapidly to a very large audience and maintain the performance. And another example is Carta, an Australian fintech, a personal favorite fintech of mine, because they're really reinventing the experience of gifting using virtual or mobile payment products. So what they've done now, they've basically developed a private label solution, a scheme solution with MasterCard in Australia, that allows the customers to basically send a virtual card to any receiver. You can then basically receive the virtual card and then spend a given amount at selected merchants. So it's considered to be a private label solution, which means that it can't be used everywhere, but only at the merchant you want to. So you can basically send your mother a card that can only be used at Woolworths, a very large retailer in Australia. And that has the potential to really sort of reinvent how gifting works, all digital, all seamless, with a beautiful experience, and ultimately making customers happy. This platform was built in Australia. According to MasterCard, it was one of the fastest launches in MasterCard's history. And now Carta are expanding into the US and into Europe. And again, the backend was designed so that it can scale into multiple markets. It can offer various innovations in product and basically provide a service that people will come to depend on. And Nomi Health, which is the last sort of case study I'll talk about, is slightly different. It's an insurance company that basically had real-time payments at the core of its value proposition. So it's really around helping customers in the US healthcare market to basically buy healthcare and receive the benefits all in real time, which, as many may understand in the US, is really not the case today. And that creates a lot of problems in terms of receiving what is quite an urgent service. So real-time payments on a scalable, flexible payment ledger and processor was really important to sort of Nomi Health's aspirations to become a powerful, dominant healthcare provider. So with that in mind, I just want to sort of give you a little bit of context about what we see in the market. So I've selected this slide here, which comes from an Accenture global payment study where they got feedback from 205 bank C-level members, asking them what they thought were the top two factors driving disruption. Now, what's really interesting here is that according to the audience here, which are banks, it was the emergence of new technologies that's really driving a lot of the disruption in payments. And I think that's kind of interesting because, again, from their perspective, this is sort of what we see driving a lot of the innovations in, let's say, the wallets, the business models, the services we're providing, and even more operational matters like time to market and efficiencies of running your platform. So we know from banks that new technologies are driving disruption, and therefore that there has to be more of a conversation about what technologies, how do we implement them, and how do we operate them. Well, I thought what was also quite interesting here was that the second top thing was the launch of central bank digital currencies. I think we all know that these the requirements for CBCDs haven't quite come through to an operational level for banks. But for banks to already be citing this as a number two factor for disruption tells you that when making decisions today about technology selection or investments into your bank, you really need to think about what's coming around the corner, and making decisions today that mean that in 1 or 2 years' time, if things had to change, there's no regret around decisions today. Now, again, number three, change consumer behaviors. I think it's safe to say that we all live and breathe this in our daily lifestyles when it comes to things like online and digital spending. We know how much this has changed the payment requirements of businesses, how it's required new payment acceptance methods to come through, and how banks have had to accept them and implement them in a relatively short amount of time. So again, this could be made a lot easier by having more efficient and flexible backends, but of course you can still do it with whatever systems you have, but it may just come at a greater friction point and cost. And then there's obviously a tail of other factors here, which I think shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, sort of not least regulatory pressure, which I think we can all agree is a sort of a permanent factor for driving disruption. Now, if we take a sort of a different view in terms of what are banks doing to respond, here are some insights that episode 6 we've gathered from talking to banks around the world. So in terms of what banks are doing to respond, they're definitely responding to the kind of the previous points, which is around offering new payment methods. So this is around things like real-time payments, integrating into the new faster payment systems of countries, whether this is about launching new virtual card products that allow contactless payments. There are multiple use cases now that we are actually implementing for banks. And again, it's all about doing it efficiently, developing the experiences that actually solve the problems, and making sure that this can be implemented and operated efficiently by the bank. So I think probably number one is around the payment methods and supporting them. And number two, which I think is quite interesting, is around the more the commercials around this. There is definitely a huge thrust to sort of use payments as a platform service to support all segments of society, whether it's existing customers or reaching new customers through light touch banking and wallet solutions. And the incentives really to kind of bring people onto the platform are largely driven through retail or merchant partnerships that allow more value to be given in real time to the customers. And they've been using this as a way to sort of drive more utility into payments, is by connecting them to by partnerships to the ecosystem. Number three, which is sort of slightly different, it's around the sort of the interoperability of payment systems. So in the current environment today, having more interoperability actually provides the payment issuer, the bank, more liquidity and access to liquidity, which is critical. It's quite important. In fact, I'll talk about this in the next slide, where we can go into a bit more detail on this one. But certainly connecting all the different payment systems provides customers here more reasons to bank with you for all the different use cases on one platform. And number four is sort of, again, the kind of the slow moving trend here. Sort of anyone that was built or uses technology that was built before the internet, so whether you call that 90s or in sort of the noughties, as I think they call it that, there's certainly a requirement now to progressively modernize your platform so that you can deliver all the payment experiences in real time with all the integrations to third parties via the embedded models. So these are sort of slow moving progressive modernization strategies that ultimately meet all the sort of the main requirements of the banks, whether that's across system performance, security with more digital and more online experiences. I think fraud is consistently been one of the top emerging problems for banks in recent years with the growth of digital and online payments, and supporting all the different development, different products that have been required. Again, coming back to the interoperability point, is kind of one of the top challenges for the payments industry. The kind of challenge we have right now is that a lot of the payment systems are developed nationally or by large corporate groups that the systems don't speak to each other, and that's largely just because of the genesis of these platforms. They're built using different system standards, languages, protocols, and the opportunity here really is around creating more consistency around that. We've seen already around the world that there have been about 60 new faster payment systems that have been developed globally. A lot of these have come in Asia, and we're even now starting to see interoperability between these real-time faster payment systems, and we've seen this in Southeast Asia now, where there have been agreements with the QR systems, so they basically allow people to make payments in between. And that's quite a significant thing now, because that opens up a lot of opportunity now to create more use cases and support more use cases that were traditionally handled outside of traditional banking, whether it's through money changers or even taking away the kind of the cash element of it and providing more reasons there. So there are challenges around interoperability, but again, as these are being solved, we're now seeing more opportunities to sort of bring more payment value to customers. Again, just to sort of talk about a major sort of a theme that we see in payments. Historically, cards were used for spend, and sort of non-card payments, account-to-account payments were used for transfers. But what we're really seeing now is a real convergence here, where account-to-account is now being used for merchant transactions, and cards are now being used for account-to-account. So there's a large convergence happening here between non-cards and cards. However, we know that from a bank perspective, from an operations perspective, these are largely considered to be two different products, two different platforms, two different teams. And that really, in terms of where the markets are going towards, creates a huge inefficiency and, frankly, a significant cost overhead, and challenges towards building new experiences since things are so disconnected. So a real theme behind the kind of the forward-looking banking sort of, I'd say, target architecture is around having a common central point that fits into a generic payment hub that can process all payments and settle with the different funding sources. So I kind of pulled together this sort of conceptual, which is sort of what we think about as a unified payments end state target architecture, where you have your sort of universal processor in the middle. That processor connects to all of your different channel-specific gateways. It then connects to all of your different funding sources, whether it's a funded wallet or bank account, whether it's a credit-based system where you're funding from a credit facility, or whether it's pre-funded, a real-time third-party funded solution. There's a lot more flexibility around how you can fund payments right now, which is critical for delivering real-time experiences. And it's important that value, that vertical of going from the payment acceptance point through to the funding point is then universally connected to all of the rails and data points to then provide that. So again, it's a bit of fresh thinking around what this should look like. But again, when we think about the future state, it has to have all the connections to all the services to be delivered, to be able to deliver real time to all the use cases. And then that needs to be built on a system which is modern, API first, cloud ready, and able to scale. The challenge with achieving this end state is largely around the technology, and it's really important, therefore, that banks have a strategy over a long time and have a platform that can support those long investments over a long period of time. And that's largely around minimizing your risk, making sure that you're making the right investments over a period of time, and then basically making sure that your backend platform can support that. Very quickly, and just to wrap up, so episode 6, we're a presenter sponsor of DBA, Digital Bank in Asia. We're a modern payment technology platform that's designed for banks to help them process all forms of payments on a common architecture. And it's all built on modern technology that allows to deliver kind of many of the use cases we talked about before. In terms of footprint, we're a global company. We've got clients across 4 different continents. We have a large heritage in Asia where we started, and we've got banks and fintechs across the region, but we're now supporting them with a platform that can basically grow with them over their lifetimes. What makes episode 6 different? Fundamentally, we're bank enterprise technology designed and presentable for the requirements of banks. What's very important here is that we can demonstrate all the proof points from a performance, scalability, security perspective for banks and their stakeholders such as regulators, auditors, etc. We're globally distributed, which means that we can localize our technology wherever your customers are. So if it needs to be in a region, if it needs to be in a market, we can deploy our software so that you can meet your residency requirements, but then also the latency requirements as well, so that you can basically deliver the best service in real time to your customers. And quite critically, what's great about our platform is that it's hyper configurable, so it can be owned by the bank to design whatever payment experiences they want to. Full control on everything from the product, the pricing, the risk, and this is really critical when making selections, investment selections today, is to make sure that you can own your platform and you can basically focus on revenue optimization, cost management, and risk management, and your platform is no longer a bottleneck, and that it can support you through your journey. So with that, I'll sort of stop the presentation. If there are any questions, please let me know.
All right. Thank you, Ravi, for that great presentation. So if anyone from the audience have any questions for Ravi or specifically episode 6 solutions, you can reach out to Ravi directly over at the People tab or catch him over at the episode 6 booth. Him and his team will be more than happy to assist you. Thanks again, Ravi. All right. Up next in our Digital Trends Watch is a panel session on banking technology, preparing for a new age of digital banking. In this panel, we have Brandon Richards, General Manager, Asia of Neo4j, Jaslyn Q, Head of Client Digital Channels and Content Marketing at Citi, Gareth Bridges, Business Development Director, Financial Services at Equinix Asia Pacific, Niels Arkadal, CIO, Digital Banking, Value Creator, Board Advisor at Standard Chartered Bank. We have Andika Rachman, AVP, Head of AI at PT Bank Rakyat Indonesia. And last but not least, our moderator, we have Chulayuth Lochotinan, or Tan, Partner, Head of Thailand at Capco. All right. I'll hand it over to you, Tan.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome everyone again. I hope you can hear me okay. Welcome everyone again to our session on banking technology, preparing for the new age of digital banking. And firstly, thank you once again, Digital Banking Asia, for inviting me to moderate this panel discussion for the second year now. So my name is Chulayuth, but you can call me Tan for short. That's my nickname. I have around 20 years of experience in the financial services industry, mostly in consulting capacity. Currently now the partner and head of Thailand at Capco, which is the global management and technology consulting company, specializing in financial services. So I'm a big advocate of digital banks and its potential to make financial services more engaging, more seamless, and more accessible to the underbanked population as well. So before we begin, I would like to welcome you to our panelists and ask all of them to give a short introduction about themselves and their roles. Perhaps starting with Jaslyn. Over to you.
Hi, thanks. Hi, everyone. Hi, so I'm Jaslyn from Citibank, Singapore. Currently managing their client marketing, digital channel sales, as well as customer experience optimization, MarTech, and their content strategy. Prior to that, I've been in both B2B and B2C industries, including EY, Kantar, Credit Suisse, and State Street, overseeing brand building, account-based marketing, content strategy, digital marketing, as well as customer experience management transformation. Very happy to be here today.
Thank you, Jaslyn. Over to you, Niels.
Off mute, I hear. Hope everyone can hear me.
Yep.
Great. Thanks. Lovely to be here. Look forward to a good discussion. And thanks, Ravi, for your previous presentations. I am with Standard Chartered Bank. I am the CIO for our business banking, so that's our SME business globally. And then I look after digital platforms, which we define as anything that sort of sits behind the channels from the marketing, real-time analytics, CRM perspective. I also look after open banking and partnerships for us. So exciting to be here and look forward to the conversation. Thanks, Dan.
Great. Thanks, Niels. And over to Andika.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone can hear me. So, yeah, my name is Andika. I work in BRI, or Bank Rakyat Indonesia, one of the largest government-owned bank in Indonesia. So I'm the head of AI. So all of AI initiatives inside the organization will be my responsibility and my team. Previously, I was a researcher in Japan as well as in Norway, specialized in artificial intelligence. So I'm hopefully we can have a fruitful discussion today.
Thanks, Andika. And also in the panelists, we have two industry experts from solution providers, Equinix and Neo.js. So perhaps Gareth, a quick introduction on your company and yourself as well.
Sure. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having us here. So I'm Gareth Bridges. I'm based in Hong Kong, and I'm responsible for our financial services ecosystem across Asia Pacific. So for us, that would mean we're hosting stock exchanges and the brokers who want to connect to them, payments infrastructure for most of the kind of payments rails that you would have all heard of, and also for retail banking, and on top of that, all of the various cloud service providers who are in our data centers as well.
Thanks, Gareth. And Brandon?
Yeah, Brandon Richards. I'm the general manager for Asia at Neo4j. I'm based in Kuala Lumpur. It's great to be with you. And a little bit about Neo4j. We're the pioneer and market leader in the emerging graph data and analytics category that's just exploded in the last few years. So we help companies get more value out of their data by connecting the dots in a way that opens up new possibilities in analytics and automation. So essentially, it allows you to do things with your data that were previously impossible. Things like real-time fraud detection, anti-money laundering, cybersecurity, improving AI and machine learning outcomes, customer 360, and the list goes on and on. So thank you. It's great to be with you.
Thanks, Brandon. So as you know, retail banking services across Asia Pacific are undergoing a seismic transformation. Digital banking licenses, new emerging technologies, shifting in competitive dynamics, and implication of the global pandemic, all kind of contributing to this evolution. And equally important is the influence of the digital savvy and more mobile-orientated consumers across the region as well. So Capco has just released a regional poll that we had surveyed over 5,000 Asia Pacific consumers in Hong Kong, Greater Bay Area, Singapore, Thailand, and Malaysia. And I can share this in the link later on. But some of the key findings is that 8 in 10 of the respondents say that they want a better online experience from their banking services providers. with almost 50% are willing to switch banks over greater experience. 75% are using mobile cross to access banking services. And the survey also revealed that 6 in 10 people would trust big tech companies more than a bank to deliver banking services, which means that technology plays a key role in differentiating the banking services. And of course, technology is being used for personalization, and for, at least for Thailand, 50% of the people are willing to share personal data to unlock personalized products and services. So in this discussion panel, we'll hear from our industry experts about the future of banking services. We'll then deep dive into the common technology and IT challenges that we face in the market, and how do we address them with the technology solutions, and then they can all share about the best practices and key learnings, and sparing about 15 minutes hopefully at the end for Q&A. Okay, so let's dive in then. The first topic in this session would be the future of banking services. So I would like to perhaps begin with Niels. You can share on what you mean by future of banking services for Standard Chartered, from both the retail and business banking perspective, and what would be your focus for the next few years?
Yeah, thanks, Tan. And just to sort of reflect on what you said there, I think certainly customer experience is absolutely critical. Personally, there's nothing else than I hate than not being able to use a mobile app efficiently. So I fully understand that. I think everyone is moving in that direction and doing their best. That said, though, I find that we are beyond the era of creating a good app from a banking service perspective. This is, for me, is hygiene, and it's just something you should expect as a customer. If it's not there, by all means, go to another a bank to get that good service. From my perspective, I think the future of banking is really moving the banking closer to the consumer when it comes to the mass consumer, personal lending, credit card, maybe even some of the more democratized wealth capabilities. And what I mean by that is that it's not necessarily that individuals will bank with the bank directly. They'll bank through platforms, through partners, to e-commerce players, to tech platforms, whatever is out there. And then we as a bank needs to be ready to interact and engage with that. So for us, building out these partnerships, providing banking as a service capabilities, really being at the forefront of enabling that revolution is something that's extremely critical for us. So, and when it comes to the business banking segment, it's moving away from a highly risk-driven approach to more looking at an way to facilitate ongoing cash flow management for the organization. So you can sort of know upfront what is the money that you need in order to fulfill your business obligations and operate your company. Then you're solving a very, very big challenge for the SMEs. And I think for us as a bank, that's something we want to move in direction of. Of course, all risk aspects has to be managed properly. So it's not just jumping in without a life vest, but there's certainly some things that need to be changed in that space in order to use alternative data sources and partner also with supply chain data and platforms.
Thank you.
So from my view, it's a lot about partnerships. It's a lot about using different data. It's a lot about creating differentiated products associated with that.
Thanks, Niels. And by differentiating products, are there any particular kind of features that you feel that the market is demanding in particular, at least for retail banking?
I think so. Also, what was in the previous session, I think payments, ease of payments is something that's a big demand, and you need to find out how you really enable that. We see with our digital banks that simple and easy FX management, and also debit versus credit card, maybe even small installment loans, etc., on the card itself. So these 2-to-1 products in a card, or 3-to-1 products. So I think it's all about creating the simplicity and ease of those products. But I see that a lot. And of course, robo-advisory is a big thing out there. where people want to be saving up for the future as well.
Thank you. For Standard Chartered, I know you have a pretty powerful mobile banking, but do you also have a separate digital banking app?
Yeah, so for our digital bank, specifically in Singapore, Trust, and for our bank up in Hong Kong, Mox, those are individual banks. So those are fully digital, if you like, versus the main bank has their own set of channels and experiences.
Okay, we can deep dive into the challenges a little later. Let me now turn to Jaslyn, who's the head of digital channels and content marketing at Citi. Perhaps you can elaborate more on personalization, which focus on marketing through digital channels. Maybe share some use cases of how data is being used and whether you're using AI technology at Citi as well.
Sure. So actually, all in all, the current personalization that we do are very much based on incremental, delightful customer moments, as we call it, like birthday greetings and getting them birthday offers that's like specialized and curated just for them. And then we make sure that we have targeted offers as well based on their buying propensity and the type of relationship that they have coming on board with us for, say, the first 30, 60, and 90 days when they sign up as either a new cards customer, a new retail customer, or new loans customer. And then concurrently, now we are also looking at curated content. So things like market insights, articles, videos that we can actually launch to them, especially via our mobile app, and then try to get them to buy deeper into our other products. So it's more like an upsell and cross-sell kind of optimization we're looking at. But all in all, from a personalization AI application perspective, due to banks' legacy systems, which I think everyone is very familiar with, a lot of our systems are built from scratch. A lot of personalization efforts are actually done incrementally in silos and on a per product or per journey basis. And I think the challenge and increasing importance in the next few years is to achieve personalization at scale beyond just looking at buying propensity, but really focusing on their life stage needs or persona-led kind of personalization. Because there are a lot of data available in banks, but it's all sitting in the different data warehouses or data cubes, as we call it, and then distilling the data, cleaning out the junk, connecting it back to our customer segments. It's important that we don't need to rehash it each and every time, but it can be done via automated flows. And then when it comes to AI application, I would say we are not quite there yet. It's more like machine learning at this point at its best, based on historical buying patterns to maybe create propensity and try to predict their buying behavior through A/B testing. But then we, as a bank, we actually would need a combination, I think, of AI or HI, which is human intelligence, as we need to apply an ethical lens always in terms of treating our customers fairly and avoiding unconscious bias. Because I think ultimately AI cannot replace the context and experience and knowledge of HI, the human intelligence portion.
Great, thank you. And perhaps over to Gareth and Brand. As a solution provider, what do you see as the key ask, maybe the problem statement, the key problem statement from your clients? What do they ask for in relation to what we just discussed?
Yeah, I think from the perspective of kind of the retail banking customers, as kind of both Niels and Jaslyn mentioned, a lot of the kind of challenges they're facing are relating to kind of the data supply chain and kind of if you're kind of needing to bring in data from multiple sources and potentially need to do analytics across multiple platforms in order to arrive at the kind of result that you're looking for, that would generally involve many dependencies. So if we look at kind of Equinix, we operate data centers, and inside those data centers are multiple cloud service providers. So if you're going to be requiring things like AI, we have partnership with NVIDIA, who have their AI infrastructure hosted with us. We have all of the major clouds, so Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Azure, etc. So as you may be leveraging a software as a service application that's hosted on Microsoft Azure, and you also need to integrate that with some maybe BigQuery work that you're doing with Google Cloud Platform. Equinix would be the centralized place where that information is common to all of the various kind of dependencies. So generally people would land stuff at Equinix in order to have proximity to all of the kind of constituent parts of the application that they need to knit together.
Thanks, Gareth. And Brandon, do your clients come with similar problems?
Yeah, I mean, I think banks have a lot of connected data and legacy data problems, and they've been centralizing this into data lakes and warehouses, but the data remain disconnected. As a part of this digital transformation, I think a lot of organizations are under, we're seeing more banks wanting to natively connect the dots across these silos and graph data platforms to drive better data-driven outcomes. So for example, two of our panelists are one from Standard Chartered, another one from Citibank. Both have spoken publicly, maybe not these specific speakers, but both banks have spoken publicly about using knowledge graphs to pull data together and get kind of this complete view of the data, and then using that for a wide range of things across the bank. So for things like AI and machine learning initiatives, cybersecurity, fraud, customer 360, a lot of those types of things. So we're working with lots of banks in the region to do something similar, and I think that trend will continue.
Thanks, Brandon. So we can deep dive into the solutioning in detail a little later, but we've touched on the challenges and the legacy system already, and also the topic of data and AI seems to be like an area of focus. So we'll now focus our discussion on the technology and IT challenges in implementing these changes and to address the customer demands. Perhaps I can turn to Andika, head of AI at Bank Rakyat in Indonesia, to share on what it takes to implement data analytics and AI and the challenges that you've been facing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think the first thing that we need to really settle is the data, because of it will depends on the quality and also the availability of data if we want to really apply AI in a good way. We used to have a challenge in data infrastructure because in BRI we used to have data that is segregated. It depends on the application, it depends on business, so they have their own local database. But right now, when we start our journey in applying AI and also big data, we aim to have centralized data lake, data warehouse, centralized data lake, and data warehouse, so we can do analytics and AI in proper way. So I think for any enterprises or companies that really want to start their AI journey, especially big enterprises, so I think centralizing your data is really a big step towards that journey. Second one will be the talent availability and also enablement, because talent war is really real in the market, and AI talent, machine learning talent is really scarce, especially the talented one, the good one. So we still have a lot of difficulties in acquiring, and so not only acquiring but also how to retain them and make them stay in the company. So a lot of things already we've been a lot of things like having research collaboration with universities, the best universities in Indonesia as well as abroad, so they can do AI research in our company. So we provide the infrastructure data so they can play with real use cases. So that's one thing that we do. So we also try to publish some papers. So we want everyone knows, especially the one in academia and also in industry, that our companies really care about AI and also how we can implement it in banking industry and the financial industry. So talent will be the second one. The third one will be the governance. The AI governance will be, I think very important things to consider when you start AI journey in financial industry, because we are really heavily regulated. So a lot of things such as explainable AI, ethics, bias and fairness, really something that we should consider, but probably not at the initial stage, probably at the middle stage, after you already settle the infrastructure as well as the talent challenges. But after that, you should consider the ethics, the responsible AI elements, so that you can really comply with the regulations in this respective basis. So governance, and also the I think the fourth one will be the structure, organization of your AI. So whether you want to have decentralized data scientists, or you want to have a centralized one in the IT. So I think it's something that you need to consider. So the respective methods have their own challenges and also advantages. So you need to consider some that depends on your circumstances in your organization. So I think that's those four things that I think the most important one when you start your AI journey.
Thanks for sharing that. And for your bank, did you start from scratch, or did you have any like legacy systems to deal with?
Of course, we have a lot of legacy systems, especially on the data aspects. So we have to deal with it, and also how we can integrate the new system, so the legacy systems can still operate without really having impact on the new system.
Yeah. Specifically, how do you deal with that?
Well, that's a long story. I think there will be like news, like completely separate session. But well, I think a lot of things. I mean, we have to like adjust some configuration on our legacy system so we can match with the new system, and also some renewal, some updates on the legacy system is needed if you want to really having the new system operates well.
Okay. And what do you hope to achieve? What is your end goal in AI? Like, what kind of use cases do you want to achieve in the end?
The end goal would be for AI to be like the business DNA on the organization, because if only certain kind of people that really can use AI, that would not be ideal. The ideal is like probably like in 90s, probably not a lot of people can use Excel spreadsheet, but right now everyone use Excel spreadsheet. So I use that analogy. So when everyone can use AI, they can do a self-analytics AI development by themselves, then that's, I think, the success of having AI as the business DNA. So I think that kind of things that really we strive for.
Thank you. So turning back to Niels, perhaps you can share, it doesn't have to be related to AI, but what kind of technology challenges do you face?
Yeah, I just want to share two reflections on what Annika was talking about. One is when you're moving, so data-wise and reporting-wise, we moved from MIS to some analytics to advanced analytics, and now towards AI. And actually, what you need to realize as an organization is, as you move up that trend, the perfection of your data can come down. So if you want to go for perfect data, it's going to take you decades, and it'll cost you millions and millions and millions or billions of dollars to get it right. So you have to find the balance between getting the right kind of data and use that intelligence to merge different sources of data versus getting into a very, very detailed data governance and data management process for that. The second reflection is we are seeing regulatory pressure on how we use AI and especially the explainability of it, etc. So that's another thing. And to be very honest, I think there's very few real AI models that we in the end are using. What we are using is more advanced analytics or MIS on steroids kind of thing. We are very, in my view, and maybe my colleagues disagree, but we are very, very early in that journey. So I would imagine that is something most banks are in at the moment. And the regulators needs to, there has to be a close collaboration between the parties to move truly to the more deeper AI and deeper learning capability. When it comes to I think there's technology challenges in a number of areas. One is the data platforms, the infrastructure platforms even, and then there's the product engines, which have been around. I was on a panel 6 or 9 months ago, and I think there was the average age of product ledgers were like 15 or 18 years old when people were asked. So obviously they are not built for the current way of delivering banking services. So that's one big thing that we are looking at. How can we modernize what we own ourselves and we build ourselves, but also how can we leverage and partner with some of the new tech platforms out there to create more personalized, contextualized, advanced products that can be deployed in a much faster way. So I think that's on the data side, I echo what was mentioned earlier, and I think it's about trying to get to a point where you're 70 or 80% there, and then use that, and then really be focused on the hypothesis you want to test from a value creation perspective versus trying to solve for the whole universe at once.
Thanks for sharing that, Niels. And quickly over to Jaslyn, the challenges you face in the personalization and kind of technology like MarTech stack do you implement?
Sure. I guess, I love that we still have to deal with Excel. I think no matter how advanced we are in our AI journey, probably decades from now. But in all seriousness, from a city and just a banking perspective, I find that a lot of challenges are also due to our internal processes, politics, down to sometimes there's also a lack of clear business ownership. There are a lot of people who are willing to share opinions, but sometimes the lack of clear decision making and decision owners that could actually slow down the implementation process and decision making process as a whole. And I find there's always a disconnect between tech, marketing, as well as platform owners, as they don't always talk the same language, or worse, they don't talk to each other. Thus, there are a lot of dependencies that are being ignored, and they neglect the obvious in terms of ensuring seamless customer journeys, because each party just see that they are responsible for their own part of the implementation. And a classic example actually is actually one party being responsible for, say, a pre-login environment and content management platform, while another party is responsible for, say, post-login app-based environment. And then when it comes to the need to migrate platforms, one party calls the shot, but you still need to get the buy-in from the other party, or else there will be two platforms running in parallel at the end of the day. And then the journeys are simply not in sync from a customer's perspective. And then when you talk about cost-wise, while you're migrating, you still need to maintain whatever legacy platform that you have. And then it boils down to this whole convoluted conversation of how many tech mandates we have left, and then people kind of like infighting on the tech release timelines and fighting for mandates, and forgetting that at the end of the day, whatever we're doing is actually for the customer. So I like to share this analogy of how it's a case of like people, both parties living in the same house, but they own separate rooms. And then one party wants to move, one wants to renovate. But actually, both needs to come to a consensus in terms of the timing, the cost, and manpower allocation, as well as how to prioritize the move. Because business users don't really care as much about the foundation or plumbing of a house, and IT infrastructure teams don't care as much about the ambience or the furnitures or fittings of the house. So very often we actually need like a change management team in the middle to actually connect the dots and get both parties to work together without killing each other.
So I think the challenge that we have heard is a combination of both the existing system as well as the people, right? The people challenge could be more of a challenging problem to solve. So let's focus on the easier one, which is the technology solutions. So we've been hearing about the challenges, and I would like to spend the next session of the discussion on technology solutions. I know that Gareth and Brandon have already shared the things that their companies can do. Perhaps we can deep dive into the concrete examples or the proud examples that you have tackled challenges for your banking clients. Perhaps starting with Gareth.
Sure, no problem. So, yeah, I mean, thank you. This is something that we do see a lot of. So I mean, listening to kind of Jaslyn talking about the people living in a shared house and stuff, and it kind of actually reminded me of when people talked about shadow IT a few years ago. When people would be in a department, they would go and sign up for some cloud services on their credit card, and somehow it's kind of down to the kind of the more traditional IT function to figure out, oh, how do we manage to kind of integrate this and put it all back together so that the bank is in a position where they have more governance capabilities over the data which they're responsible for. And similarly with what Niels was saying with the kind of regulatory pressures that exist. So I think there's definitely a desire for people to want to use more kind of advanced technology. They want to be able to have these kind of consumption-based models. They want to use best of breed. They want to take, I want this particular service from this cloud service provider, and I want this one from this one. So how do you kind of pull it all together, and how do you ensure that the costs don't run away? And ultimately, if you need to speak to the regulator, and you need to have some certainty, like this is where my data lives, right? So a lot of the time with our customers, they will be looking to say, well, why don't we just put some storage inside the Equinix data center? So that's your customer data. That's the bit that you're really on the hook to protect. And then if I want to just, we can give you a fiber or a virtual connection straight into any of the public cloud service providers or the other counterparties that you're working with, and you can leverage those cloud services. But you're ensuring that you have your data under your own control. So if you need to point at it, to the regulator, that's absolutely possible. What this does as well, it puts the banks in much stronger positions as well, because they find that if they want to, as you know, if you're moving data in and out of clouds, there's a cost associated with that as well. So you have these things called data egress costs. If you're keeping the data outside of the cloud to start with, then you can make it accessible to more clouds, and you're not going to be beholden to them to pay these egress costs. And this is also good for the longer term of the bank as well, because as they might choose to terminate a partnership with one cloud service provider and establish something with someone else, they can do that much more easily because the data is under their own control. And again, we see this with even other regulations around kind of business continuity. The Singapore government, the MAS, they're very clear, right? They say, look, you can put as much stuff as you want into the public cloud, but should that cloud service provider have a failure, that's not an excuse, right? It's down to you to ensure that customers can still access their money. You don't lose any transactions along the way. So you need to ensure that the kind of architecture that you build your bank on is ensuring that you're not going to fall foul of other kind of dependencies and difficulties they might be having as well. So that would be generally kind of just how you take back control of the various kind of shadow IT stuff that's been spun up. How do you kind of integrate things and you put yourself in a position where you can leverage the kind of most current types of technologies?
Thanks, Gareth. And Brandon, I understand that Neo4j has some solutions relating to Customer 360. And this is the key to personalization, right? You need to understand the customer. So what kind of use cases or tools that you provide?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at how many different systems in a bank have customer data, it could be hundreds or thousands of systems, right? And getting a complete view of that data isn't just about storing all that customer data in one location, right? I mean, I think that might be a good start, but it's actually about connecting the dots across those data. So I should be able to use the full context around a customer to understand what's the next best offer based on similar customers, or identify both risk and opportunity by looking at transactions and money flows. We have one large bank who basically has taken all of the transactions that the bank's doing, and they formed this graph to understand who's doing business with who in this kind of big web of interconnected transactions. And then what they want to do is they want to see, it looks like company A is doing a lot of business with company B, and maybe company B is going to go bankrupt, and I need to understand the impact that has on company A, right? Or conversely, maybe I'm trying to identify opportunities. Who's the next customer we should be going after based on these kind of supply, these apparent transaction supply chains that we can see. So you can identify, hey, here's the low-hanging fruit we should be going after. Or maybe there's these complex patterns of fraud, and I want to be able to calculate those in milliseconds across that very same graph, or do anti-money laundering. So I think that's kind of one piece of, that we're dealing with. And then from a graph analytics standpoint, we're seeing these staggering results in identifying fraud that was going previously undetected. And we're talking big numbers here. So I know one large bank that we're working with, it turned out that almost 70% of the actual fraud that they had was going undetected. And their current AI, sophisticated AI machine learning models were flagging just kind of the 30%. But even of those, it was a huge number of false positives. So being able to connect the data, connect the dots across your data, and actually find that hidden fraud that you've been missing, that is big. And then reducing the number of false positives. So we think graph analytics can be a game changer for banks, across a wide range of use cases, from customers to customer 360 type use cases to risk management use cases.
Thanks, Brandon. So I think we are running out of time. We have the last 10 minutes. Just would like to spend this session on sharing of the perhaps 3 lessons learned or any best practice and tips that you could use in identifying the right technology and implementing them. Perhaps starting with Niels.
Yeah, I think for me, really the biggest learning is to focus on people. Focus on creating opportunities for people, being it product owners, analysts, data scientists, developers, but actually enable them to be effective in the organization, create career paths that are exciting for them, provide required training, etc. So really, unless you have the right people with the right mindset, you're not going to get anywhere with all these challenges, in my view. So that's the biggest learning. Over focus on that from my perspective.
Thanks, Niels. How about you, Jaslyn?
Thanks. So echoing Niels as well, I think bring the focus back to the customer core benefit, especially when conversations become too convoluted by too much back and forth. And then it's important to also do your groundwork by consulting all the stakeholders who would be affected by the implementation of this technology before we make a decision, and ensure we have the right governance and process in place to actually implement. And look at things from a longer term perspective instead of like short term quick fixes as a band-aid solution, even if it appears too costly or too time consuming or plain challenging to implement at the beginning.
Thank you. Andika?
Yeah, I think same with Niels and Jaslyn. People, I think the first one, I think that's the most important things that have we have to put attention on people. The second one, probably we should start small. So especially when you want to implement AI, we shouldn't do something that is overly complex. So starting from really basic analytics, that's normally something that's really needed by your business. For instance, like we try to provide some very complex solution to our business, but what they needed is just like a simple dashboard for their self analytics. So I think you should do from simple one, and then gradually, when needed, you can step up to like more complex products or services for your business. And yeah, the third one probably similar with what Jaslyn already said, to really involve all the stakeholders, especially business side, and to collaborate, so there's no silos in between.
Great. And from the perspective of implementing solutions to clients, any tips or lesson learned from Gav?
Yeah, I'd say from the perspective of our customers, the things they've benefited most from is ensuring that they have flexibility, right? So I think if you look at what Equinix would bring to the table here, we have consistency in that we're in kind of most of the major kind of financial centers across the world. So you have a standardization of the way that you're dealing with your data center vendor. But then, if we took Singapore as an example, we've got probably close to 300 different network service providers in our data center. So if you want to, again, get more favorable terms with your vendors, you have that ability to switch all of the major cloud service providers. But not only that, I mean, if you're looking also within the financial services sector, the majority of the FX that gets traded in Asia Pacific happens in our SG1 data center. So if you're a retail bank and you want to start, outsourcing your FX to someone else, there's going to be 30 or 40 firms that want to talk to you inside our data center, and similarly for payment processors and that type of thing as well. So generally just put yourself in a position where you have choice, and you can have better kind of conditions.
Great. And how about you, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, coming from a graph data platform company, I would say first, if you haven't started looking into graph technology and how it's transforming banking, that would be number one. You have to start looking at graph and exploring that. There are lots of use cases that drive a huge amount of value in financial services. So I would say that's number one. But if you're looking over your bank's current high priority initiatives, there's a very high likelihood that graph data platforms could have a huge impact and move the needle there. So, and the good news is that graphs are very easy to implement. And so there's almost certainly opportunities to score some quick wins within kind of those key initiatives that the bank may have right now that you're trying to implement. Yeah, those would be mine.
Great, thank you. I think we have now 3 minutes left. I'm just wondering if the audience would have any questions for our panelists. Jed, do you know if there are any questions in the chat?
Okay. Currently, there are no questions over at the Q&A or the chat section of the session. However, if any of our delegates have any questions to any of our speakers, you may reach out to them directly by sending them a private message over at the People tab, or specifically for Gareth of Equinix and Brandon from Neo4j. You can reach out to them over at their respective booths over the booth section. So, thanks again, Tan. Thanks again to the rest of our panelists for that great discussion.
Great. So I just would like to thank you again, DBA, once again, for inviting us to share our experience and ideas in this important session. And thank you for tuning in, for the audience. Hope you found this session insightful and enjoy the remaining events for the DBA lineup for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you,
very
everyone.
much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you very much.
All right. So up next, we have a presentation by ServiceNow.
Hello and welcome to Modernizing Loan Servicing. My name is Greg Kinevsky, and I'm the Global Solutions Director for Retail and Commercial Banking here at ServiceNow. This before and after process demonstration will highlight how the loan operations solution works in a real-life scenario. So let's get into it. In an Asia-Pacific bank, they were looking to find a way to streamline 43 different processes in their back-end processing of loan servicing. And they were, through automation, they were looking to save about 50 million in annual expense exposure. Now, through the results of what they did through the ServiceNow platform, they were able to achieve nearly 1 million minutes in productivity saved. It's a really interesting scenario based off a very simple situation, which we'll get into in a minute. The specific scenario details are the customer contacts a financial institution to request a loan term extension. He works with a contact center to initiate the request, which triggers a series of steps across the loan operations and credit teams. And as you see here, there's only 4 personas, so it's a very simple scenario that is set up that happens commonly at every bank, even daily. Now, within this, the customer implemented a similar loan processing for 43 request types across businesses and consumer loans. What you should know here is that this example was only one of those. So the compelling nature of what they can do to collaborate internally and collaborate with the customer is truly compelling. Now, as you see here, there's 4 days total at the very top. You see that there's 4 days plus mail and a lot of rework between these 4 separate personas we're talking about: the customer, the contact center, loan operation, and credit teams. But as we mentioned, the customer initiates a loan servicing request with the institution through a phone call. The data is entered into 2 different systems. You see at the bottom, Excel and CRM, and that physical contact is needed in order for them to do that. Now, it's a manual data entry into one of 8 Excel templates. The fact that they have to call in, first of all, the fact that they need to put it into 2 different systems, the fact that it's one of 8 is right off the bat is extremely inefficient. And plus, there's no visibility for the customer on the status of this operational work. Now, of course, as more and more people get engaged between the contact center and loan operations, emails start getting generated between the different teams, rework needs to be done, and it's extremely very much an inefficient process. But as they continue to work through loan operations and credit teams and the emails are received and reviewed, it generates additional rework that goes back. There were phone calls between the teams, there were emails because they have no common source of data. Now you're talking about 4 different scenarios of Excel and CRM and credit databases, and the email communications between those front offices and teams in order to ensure that they're communicating with one another. Now, there are 3 steps across the different teams, including process changes, create the variation letter, and the printing. These 3 steps across 3 different systems adds to the order of complexity. So now you're talking about 5 different systems that are needed to be for this very simple scenario. That, of course, generates finally the letter that goes out to the customer 4 days later for something that could have been done really in 25 minutes. Not only is this frustrating for the customer because they have to wait so long for it, it's frustrating for the associates inside the office that have to do this every day and on multiple days across the board. Now, when you look at it against the workflow afterwards, and you look at it against the efficiencies, again, it's the same 4 personas, but right off the bat in the bottom, you're seeing that the 1 day now is less than 1 day, and the mail out to the customer is less than a day with only 5% rework. So you just right off the bat, you get to see the immediate benefits. But also I direct your attention to the bottom of the screen where the automation through now, and you'll see through the integration hub and the data model, you'll see how the number of systems drops dramatically. So they fill out the application now, but it's through digital channels. Everything is linked to an omni-channel experience. So if the customer wants to come back in and look at something, they can. The request is filled out and completed, but there's no more any Excel templates. There's no spreadsheets anymore. Everything is happens through the core system in the core banking systems. The customer front and middle office are connected on a single platform with real-time visibility across the case. There's no need for any manual entries or manual rework, and these systems happen in parallel. And I draw a distinction to the parallel because that is a differentiator for not only ServiceNow, but it's a differentiator for us against our competitors. That completed credit review and approval occurs all in less than 1 day, and it happens automatically in the system. Those workflows without us emails in the single system of engagement are integrated, and the data source models as well. Now, the automated documentation and creativity don't need to occur anymore because everything happens behind the scenes and it's all linked together. As a result, the customer receives the letter in 5 to 10% of the total time, generally within that day. It's now an improved experience for the customer, and it's an improved experience across the board for all of the teams involved. So not only does your Net Promoter Score go up, but your employee satisfaction scores go up as well. And look at the tangible impacts. 80% improvement in minimum time to processing. Number of spreadsheets goes from 8 to 0, 100%. Time to complete the request is 75% improvement. Application requests as well, just over 80%. We talked earlier about the number of productivity, the minutes saved at 1 million. Customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction go up. 40 processes and improved loans as a result, and green stability goals met with less paper. So it doesn't just improve the process in overall hard dollars, but it improves the retention and efficiency for the bank as well. So ultimately, how does that deliver the results more quickly? Expanded self-service, as you've seen, they can now do it digitally on and stay involved. The integration helps for a single core system of action so that it all works together. Proactive communication, so the customer is always in the loop and always understands what's going on. And the teams are connected from the front to the middle and the back office. Everybody's working in concert with one another, and it allows for a better experience. So again, my name is Greg Kinevsky. I'm the Global Solutions Director for Banking. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion about loan servicing and this example about how it can prove how the loan servicing can improve this process. So thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed it and have a great day.
All right. So if that presentation captures your interest, or if you just have any questions specifically for ServiceNow, you can catch them over at their booth, at the booth section. Thank you. So that is a wrap for our second track of the day, Digital Trends Watch. We're now going into our lunch break. Catch everyone on our next track at exactly 2 p.m. this afternoon. While on lunch, we encourage everyone to engage with one another over at the booth section. See you all later.